A good story, like a good adventure, has a destination, but it's the details that make it interesting. Keith is my uncle, and we have long talked about taking a motorcycle trip together. We set our sights on the Idaho BDR, naturally, since it was our home state. Keith and Drew are friends from work. I met Drew earlier this year on a spirited ride around Boise. He just started riding last year and has learned a lot in a short time. The plan was for Keith and me to meet up with Drew in Jarbidge, but as we hit the first section of dirt in Grassmere, 70 miles away, my reserve fuel light came on. Soon after, the weather started to turn.
I can't see any tread on your tires. That's exhausting. Yeah. And a little bit frightening. Right.
After riding all day from Boise to the start of the BDR, Keith and I met up with Drew and shared our trials and tribulations in the mud over lunch and a beer.
And then after all this rain, 5 hours later, right? What was going to be a 3.5 hour ride?
Yeah. I loved it. I loved the fact that it was such a cool adventure, but I was just like the whole time kind of worried. It's like, shit, it's like we haven't stopped. We haven't eaten a snack.
Yeah. You've just been going.
I mean, and it was like we're paddling both feet out.
We camped just 12 miles up the road along the east fork of the Jarbidge River. It had rained a lot that day, and the air was very wet. Our tents had collected dew by the time we set them up. We built a fire and planned our morning departure for no later than 9:30, so we could have breakfast in Glenn's Ferry. Morning approached quickly, but our tents were still soaked, and the idea of packing them wet left us unmotivated. We finally rolled out at 10:30. We were starting a day later than planned, but decided not to pressure our timeline and just enjoy the ride. We stopped so that Drew could take a photo of a picturesque canyon. We started making good time on the high prairie, and then about 40 miles in, Drew noticed his phone wasn't in his pocket. It fell out sometime after the canyon photo. He decided to go back and see if he could find it. The plan was for Keith and me to meander to Glenn's Ferry so I could find a sleeping pad, because somehow I forgot to pack one, despite tediously laying out all my gear the week prior to the trip. We took our time and stopped for a photo in front of Sailor's Hat Butte. Keith and I got into town that afternoon and had no success in finding a sleeping pad or even some foam to sleep on. Meanwhile, we got a text that Drew had found his phone. He met up with us shortly after, and we celebrated with some lunch and a beer at the Oregon Trail Cafe and Bar. Once again, the three of us took off. After some winding rocky roads, we arrived at Anderson Reservoir and started to get into a groove. The water was ultra blue and the view was pristine. It didn't take long to get to Pine. We stopped for gas and a beer, and to my delight, Keith found a foam sleeping pad for me. Content with our provisions and the day's successes, we found a dry campground near a stream before dark. Yep.
It's actually, so there's a deep hole right there. You can actually jump in and swim.
We're gonna have to have a raging fire before I take a bath in that.
Yeah.
That wind helps. That got my heart going and I'm hot.
How about one more? One more rock? Should we loosen this stuff?
Yeah, other motorcycles have gone by. That's an old sign. I feel good about it.